Hello YouTube and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rahul and today we're going to be talking about how to get back into the Pokemon TCG if you haven't been keeping up with IRL cards. Now I know a lot of you have not been collecting cards during the pandemic or buying in-person cards because, well, we haven't had a reason to buy cards. Competitive season's been kind of shut down. But with recent news, we look like we've got a 2022 World Season on the line, and so I'm going to teach you guys, or give you guys a quick explanation on how to get back into the game, what you should be buying to just get the cards you need, and how expensive it'll realistically be when the season starts. So welcome back to Pokemon, guys. So first we got to recognize what's changed. The 2019 season, when the season ended, that's almost 2 years ago. So there's almost been 8 sets in between, a couple of mini sets, Hidden Fates, Shining Fates, all that stuff. I don't really count those, but there's a bunch of like mini sets, big sets that have gone on. So the 2019 season is a wash. We're moving into the 2021 season, and if we look at the time frames of when things changed, if we go back to March, that'll be a full 2 years, but I don't think that'll actually happen. As of September 10th, 2021, rotation will be Sword and Shield onwards, meaning all of your cards before the Sword and Shield block you can put away if you don't plan on playing the expanded format anytime soon. For the standard format, you will no longer need those cards specifically. One of the biggest things to note from that is no more GX Pokemon. GX Pokemon, Tag Teams, EX Pokemon, they have all sufficiently made their way out of the standard format. They will no longer be here. Now, the next big thing I want to talk about is Regulation Mark. Now, Regulation Mark is new not only to you, but also to me. The 2022 standard format rotation will officially go into effect on September 10th, 2021. Going forward, card legality will be linked to Regulation Mark rather than expansion release. That is from the official Pokemon.com website. Now, what does that mean for us? Well, that means that if on the bottom left-hand corner of the card, I believe, starting from the Sword and Shield onwards expansion, you can see that there's a little letter. It goes from A through E. There used to be a little yellow alternate art A, but that has now been discontinued, I believe, for alternate promo cards. But now you can look in the bottom left corner. For example, Zacian V has the letter D. So starting in the next expansion, or sorry, next year when we start doing another rotation, cards with certain letters will be rotating out. So for example, for the 2022 season, cards with D and E regulation marks will be legal for use, as well as any future regulation marks that may be released. And so that's right now, that just includes all the Sword and Shield expansion cards forward. But moving forward, we might get cards that are like C, B, A specifically, or sets might have some other weirder numbers in there or letters in there. I've talked about this in a previous video when rotation was actually announced, that this might include some cards that just seem like they're experimental or kind of broken or coming out at a different time to kind of match us on Japan's schedule or other format schedules. Now, I mentioned it earlier in the video, if you don't plan on playing expanded events, which I don't know what our split for regionals will be, but given the past seasons, it looks like it'll be a half and half in terms of regionals, or like there'll be primarily less expanded than standard because expanded is a less common format. We don't know the ban list for it yet, 100% yet. We don't know how things are going to shake up. You can put away most of those cards that have rotated. You don't need to keep those Jirachis out. You don't need to keep those GX Pokemon out. Those tag teams can hit your binder. They can hit your bulk piles, basically. Don't get rid of them if you're going to plan on playing expanded. But they will not be needed in the standard format anymore, and that's a huge thing to note. So, testing the waters. This is like a little bit of a slide to just kind of get you back into things. This is the cheapest time to ever play the Pokemon TCG IRL. There's a lot of people opening product. There's a lot of competitive cards hitting the market that are not really collector's cards at the same time. So if you're buying minimum rarity across the board as a player, things should be super, super cheap for you across the board comparatively to even 4 or 5 years ago when Shaman EX, for example, was like a $70 card, or back in like 2011 when Young Mega Primes were $90 a card at Nationals. So like this is probably the cheapest time. You could start by building a collection on the Pokemon Trading Card Game online client. If you want to just jump in right now and try to create an account from scratch, it would probably cost $200 to $300 if you're trying to get all the codes you need. You probably want to grab 1 to 2 playable decks and kind of farm packs, farm tickets, tokens from there. But you could probably get everything you need right now in the standard format, specifically moving from Sword and Shield onwards for $200 to $300 worth of codes. I would highly advise doing something like this so you have something to test online before you want to invest in certain archetypes or certain cards when actual cards come up. Because sometimes on release they can be a little more expensive than you think, and playing online is the best way to test and practice before making that investment that could be a couple $100s for a certain archetype if it's really hot. Use resources like YouTube, Channel Fireball, Play.Limitless. These are all really, really excellent resources to kind of figure out what are some of the top performing decks, who are these people that are performing. On YouTube, you have myself, you have a bunch of other content creators, Azul, Celios, Omnipoke, Frosted Caribou, Hot Chalk, like all these amazing creators, Rare Candy, Lesage, like all these people are putting out daily content or like 3 to 4 videos a week on all these top tier videos with their takes on them. So even if you don't agree with their list necessarily, you can get a pretty good idea of what kind of cards you might need to even try a list like that. Even if like a couple of cards are differing, a lot of the time the skeleton or the structure of a deck might get shaped out pretty quickly into a format, so you can kind of figure out how you want to take that list and approach it from the future. Channel Fireball also has a lot of excellent writers from a lot of different other websites before the pandemic happened that are kind of the core focus of, your more pay to win or like pay to learn articles that you can get more information on there. And I think those will definitely ramp up in quality and how good they're going to be as soon as the Pokemon competitive season comes back specifically. Play.limitless TCG is like right now the online database for all the lists and stuff that are being played from all these weekly, daily events that are going on. So these are actually like tournament tested lists. Now all of them might not be good, but if a list is in the top 4 or like top 8 specifically, it has gone through like 7 or 8 rounds of best of 1 and like pushed itself into that bracket. So you can probably have a little bit of faith that the deck isn't just speculation or untested at the very least. Using PTCGO and these resources will kind of give you an idea of what you like before you can actually invest in these cards. So if you're someone who's working on a budget, like I did in college a lot of the time, or if you're working as someone who wants to play one deck throughout the entire season or kind of like play it for a little portion of the season, you want to like think about it before you make that investment, because sometimes cards can be expensive. And I know cards should not be a priority in your life when it comes to money. Your job, your family, your well-being takes priority, but then after that is your hobbies, and that's where, the Pokemon trading card game comes into play. I would suggest that you invest when prices are low. I think right now is the correct time. In the future slides right here, I'm going to talk about how some of these staples and some of these cards and what they're priced at, so you can kind of think about how much you want to actually spend to get back into the game. Budget yourself, obviously. Every new set, it's a little bit weirder. I did a what to buy for the Chilling Reign expansion video, and I will be doing that for all subsequent sets moving forward, so you can kind of get a better idea of what I think you should be investing in. But you don't have to invest in everything right away. A lot of my cards are speculation buys, and well, for the most part, you could buy what's hot and then kind of figure it out from there. Or if you're like a really sneaky pick, you can maybe grab that when it's cheap. You can build back your collection slow and steadily, especially because there's not that many sets in the Sword and Shield Onwards block, especially if we start in September, which I presume could actually happen. That's 2 months down the road. The world is changing very quickly for the better. September could be the earliest we're on the road for IRL play, especially in the United States of America. So you can build your collection back slowly and steadily. And the only restriction really here is that international championships and the world championships will require you to have the newest set as quickly as possible. So that's the only time you really have to pay a little bit extra out of pocket. But that isn't really a problem for a lot of players unless you are playing at the highest level anyway. So you should be willing to make that investment regardless. So with all that being said, let's gear up for in-person play. I'm hoping it comes back as soon as September. I really do miss it, but we'll see how long it takes. So now you have some of this information. We're caught up to speed. You've been gone for about 2 years. Welcome back. Now we're going to get ready for the 2021-2022 season. What is the number one product that I recommend everyone buys? That is the Trainer's Toolkit coming out in August. The Trainer's Toolkit, and I think you can buy 2 of them regardless. They come for $29.99, which is $30 effectively. So by spending $60, you're getting 50 plus useful trainer supporters and stadium cards, which are usually your very like staple cards. Considering the last Trainer's Toolkit that came out, it had pretty much every staple card that you would need: Welder, Green's Exploration, Research, etc., etc. With Research, Marnie, Boss's Orders, all of these being printed in the Sword and Shield block, I presume that they will all be very staple cards in this Trainer's Toolkit specifically. So by buying 2 copies of it, because each of them will probably come with 2 copies each in the Trainer's Toolkit. So by buying 2 copies of the Trainer's Toolkit, you will now have 4 of each. So your play sets of almost all of your trainers, supporters, stadiums for who knows how many sets will be pretty much covered. And if you need to buy anything else from moving onwards, they're going to be pennies, and it's just like adding on to your collection. So for just $60, you get that, and you get 2 Crobat Vs per Trainer Toolkit. So you get your 4 copies of Crobat V, which, you never probably need 4 Crobat V unless you're playing Eternatus VMAX, but just having the 4 feels really good. You get your 100 plus energy cards, including special energy. And in the Sword and Shield block, there's been a lot of special energy if you haven't been keeping up. So having access to all of those, probably 2 copies of each in each of the Trainer's Toolkits, also means that you'll have your full play sets of those. And energy if you don't actually have energy cards, but those are like a dime a dozen. There's 1 in every booster pack. People are probably going to give them away to you if you ask nicely. So don't worry about energy cards specifically. There's 7 tournament legal dice. So by having 2 copies, you also get 14 tournament legal dice, which is pretty much more than you'll ever need. 65 sleeves, which I think sleeves is like you buy that on your own, you figure that out on your own, but you get 2 copies of those, like 2 sets of 65 sleeves to practice with, do stuff with. I use Pink Dragon Shield specifically. That's the only sleeve I'll use at a tournament. I buy my 10 pack from the factory ahead of time. Actually, I recently put in my order for mine because I think IRL Play is coming back soon, so I'm excited to have that. And then you get a PTCGO code card with all these cards as well. So when you're building your PTCGO online collection, you can have all of your staple trainers and all that stuff included in your trainer's toolkit. And I think the code by itself is probably $5 to $6. So you're getting a ridiculous value, honestly, for everything you need, especially if you've not been keeping up for the last like year and a half, 2 years. So the TLDR of this slide was just buy 2 copies of the trainer's toolkit when they come out. They're not going to be in hot demand. They're going to be something that like scalpers do not really look for because they don't really care about the 2 to 3 packs that are in them. There might be 4 packs, I'm not entirely sure. But the packs are not like the highlight of these trainers toolkits. The highlight is the fact that they're competitive legal catch-up sets. Now, buying singles is where I want to start. Support cards are the cards that you kind of can splash into any deck. The cards that you might see in multiple archetypes. Stuff that you probably need to get a full set of, play set of, that kind of stuff. So I mentioned Crobat V already. You probably only play 2 Crobat V in most decks, other than Eternatus, which is 4, but it comes in your trainer's toolkit, so you don't have to really invest in that. Eldegoss V, you probably play 1 copy of, maybe 2 at the most, but it's $1 card right now. There's like 5 different arts of this card right now. There's a tin promo, there's like a Hidden Fates card, or like Shining Fates art, like there's a full art, all this stuff. If you're buying minimum rarity, which I recommend as a player that's trying to get back into the game, it's a very cheap card. It's just $1. You can go pick this up anywhere. You can probably have someone just sell it to you for $1. You can probably just, I don't know, like find it anywhere. Cricketune V is another card that's going to be one of the cards that ramps up in popularity, having another really good support card. Suicune V is another new one that I didn't mention, but that's in the new set. But both of these cards will probably be like $1 to $2 at most. Looking at current TCG player, $1 is what Cricketune V is listed at, so that is where I'm basing all of my pricing on. So you can invest in Cricketune V for $1. Now, Octillery is a new Rapid Strike Pokemon that comes in the Battle Styles expansion that really helps you play the Battle Styles mechanics specifically. It kind of lets you set up your board, kind of gets all that going. Most Rapid Strike decks do not play more than like a 2-2 Octillery line, but to be safe, I would just buy a 4-4 line, because what happens if you actually need a 4-4 line for a deck for some reason and all of a sudden you don't have it? Like maybe you decide out of the blue you're going to play Rapid Strike Malamar and you don't have these Octilleries. Octilleries are going for about $1, and the Remoraid's are like a couple cents. So overall, over under, I put it about $5 to buy the entire line. That's not a lot of money. It does add up when you're buying back into the game. So if you do want to pay for cheap, or like play for the smart game, just buy a 2-2 line of Octillery and don't invest in the full 4-4 line. But the full 4-4 line is what I usually would invest in just for support Pokemon like this that's very strong. Houndoom is another Pokemon that's very similar to Octillery, but has a single strike ability to grab the energy out of the deck. Single strike is also a very strong mechanic coming out of Battle Styles, and Houndooms go for about $2 a piece right now on TCG Player, and the Houndours are like 25-30 cents, so I kind of rounded it up to $10. It's probably closer to $9, but you can get the entire 4-4 line of Houndoom for that. And in single strike deck specifically, you do need the full 4-4 Houndoom line, which is why it's slightly more expensive. But it is the core of a lot of single strike decks, so if you buy this 4-4 Houndoom line, no matter what attackers you buy for the single strike, like expansion moving forward, they will kind of just be slotted in. Like you have a 4-4 line of Houndoom no matter what to do, which is really cool. And same with Octillery for a lot of Rapid Strike engine lists. You just slot this Octillery in, and all of a sudden you just have to put in your attackers, your main archetypes. So that's how support Pokemon really work out in your favor. The Galarian Bird Vs, Moltres, Articuno, and Zapdos have all been very splashable in every deck. Right now we're seeing it in the current standard format, where Galarian Moltres, with its Dire Flame Wings ability, is really good to just accelerate dark energies and energy switch and move stuff around. We have Galarian Articuno, which hasn't seen much play yet, and then we have Galarian Zapdos, which is like a 1-card answer to Eternatus, as well as just being a niche attacker in a lot of situations, especially in the post-rotation format when we don't have GX Pokemon and V Pokemon are the only things that exist. So I think to be safe, you buy about 2 copies of each of these, because there's no way that each deck will play more than 2, unless you like have a deck centric around one of these abilities or one of these skills. And they're going for about $3 each on TCG Player. Now, if that's a little bit steep for you, you might have gotten lucky with the error code ETBs from the Pokemon Center, which they will send out the birds. So if you wait 2 weeks, probably 2 to 3 weeks, the price of these birds will tank, because I think there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of Galarian birds sent out for free to a lot of their customers. And some of these collectors who probably bought like 10 of each ETB do not need 20 of each of these birds. So these birds will probably hit the market, or they'll just be sat on. But this is not one of the more expensive purchases, but these are one of the more splashable purchases. Flaffy is going to be one of the new cards coming out in Evolving Skies. I just included this in here because it's an auto-include. Evolving Skies isn't out yet, but if it is in the set list, which I presume it will be, it has Dynamotor, and Rayquaza VMAX is going to be a deck by itself as well. But I think given all the nature of these support Pokemon and the nature of how this pricing works, Mareep will be a couple cents, obviously, and Flaffy being an uncommon card will be will be also relatively cheap. Octillery and Houndoom are both rares. That's important to note as well. Flaffy is an uncommon, I believe, so it'll be a very cheap card across the board. Passimian for Rapid Strike is also a very card that you probably want to play in almost every like Rapid Strike deck, whether it be Zero Aura focused or whether it be Rapid Strike or Shifu focused, simply because you are bench sniping. That is the archetype. That is what the archetype is built around. It's about a quarter. It's not very expensive. You could probably get it for cheaper, honestly, if you tried, but it's about a quarter right now on TCG Player. Zacian V, which is one of the most oppressive, best cards designed, most OP card. I don't know how to describe it. This card's insane. It was in build and battle kits. It's been printed a billion times over and over and over again. Zacian V, about $8 if you buy all 4 copies. Now, you don't ever really need 4 copies of Zacian anymore, I think, but the card is really, really splashable and really, really broken, I think, in a lot of situations. So just buying the 4 copies is not, hurt you too much. They go for about $2 a piece on TCG Player, which is really cheap right now. I don't know if they'll go up because of how many arts there are specifically in the market, but I think overall, I think Zacian's a very good card when it comes to something like this. Zamazenta V is also a card that I think is going to be a support card and splash into a lot of decks, especially if you're playing Metal Energy already. And that card also goes for about $2 a piece. Really good at dealing with VMAX decks. So yeah, really cheap to kind of get all your support mons that kind of splash into a lot of decks. See, note how there's no Trainer Supporter Stadium on this slide in Energy. It's because the Trainer's Toolkit already covered them all. So for roughly, I don't know, probably $100 already, we've invested into getting back almost everything besides our core archetypes. So now you have all your like base pieces, like your Legos, to kind of getting the ball rolling, and you just need to find your main attackers, which is our last and final slide, which is buying your main archetype. So I heavily recommend finding out which archetype you like before you invest into it on PTCGO, or kind of playing online, or just looking at lists, results, like noting your playstyle, because some of these are more expensive than others to get into. And this is really where the meat of the money comes in. And even then, it's not that expensive if you look at these prices. For Rapid Strike or Shifu VMAX, on TCG Player, if you wanted to buy a 4/4 line of Rapid Strike or Shifu VMAX at minimum rarity, it would be $50 roughly. I am overestimating on almost all of these because I am rounding up a little bit. I'm assuming you probably want near mint or like not lightly played cards, but $50 is about what you need to invest in Rapid Strike or Shifu VMAX. Now, that archetype is probably going to be very good post-rotation. And $50 is like pretty cheap to invest in an entire 4/4 line of a pretty broken VMAX. Single Strike is about $25 if you want to invest in the full 4/4 line, which is again not that much considering the entry fee of a regionals or just traveling to an event in general. So again, if you're a child or you are someone on a budget, you could maybe invest in 1 or maybe 2 of these archetypes off the bat until you can kind of figure out your style. But I pulled up all these prices for you guys, so it's easier. Shadow Rider Calyrex is about $150 for a full 4/4 line on TCG Player, overestimating by about $5 to $10. But that being said, I think that's only the case because it's a hot new card and it is one of the most versatile cards we've seen in a very long time. I think the price will definitely go down as soon as Evolving Skies comes out. And that could also just be wrong. I mean, it could just be one of those cards that stays at that price because it is one of the best cards in the set. But I do remember Rapid Strike or Shifu's being about $20 a piece on, or like $25 a piece, sorry, upon release. And given a few weeks, they did drop down to what they are now. And Chilling Reign is currently just a new set. It's like maybe 3 weeks old right now. So I would give it a little bit of time before you buy your Shadow Riders or anything from the newer sets. Unless we're pressed to play immediately. I don't think anyone's pressed to play right off the bat right now. So you can keep an eye out on those. But it's about $150, which I still think is not that expensive considering Shadow Rider Calyrex is probably going to be one of the better cards in the new format with its energy acceleration and simple built-in draw and just how broken the card is in general. Ice Rider Calyrex, its foil is about $60 if you want to buy a 4/4 line of that. I think that card is also really good, and I think that card will also go down a little bit, but for the time being, very good. I listed a couple of other archetypes that I think are reasonable to look at for pricing across the board because they are from some of the other Sword and Shield blocks, or sets specifically, sorry. Inteleon VMAX is from the OG Sword and Shield set, and it's about $25 for the old one for a 4/4 line. I think mostly because, one, the card is not very playable currently in the standard format because of lightning weakness, but post-rotation it becomes very, very strong. And it came out in this this battle deck, which makes it also tanked in value a little bit. The new one is also going to be really good, but the new one does not have a price. I don't even know if we're going to get it in Evolving Skies yet. Umbreon VMAX will be a card that gets splashed into a lot of single strike decks as well as maybe other decks because of its gust ability. It's not really an archetype by itself, but it's more of a support mon. I just didn't know really where to put it. But in that sense, it is still going to be an unknown price point, but because it's an evolution, it'll probably be a little more expensive than you want it to be. Eternatus VMAX is one of these archetypes from Darkness Ablaze that has really not gone away since its release. Even with Galarian Zapdos being in the format, it is still one of the stronger cards across the board. If you just buy regular arts for everything, it's about $45 for Eternatus VMAX. If you buy the gold arts, I think it's like $80, which is still not that bad. Or the black arts, sorry. The black golds, I think they're called. And then if you buy promos, which I didn't even know Eternatus VMAX had promos, because I think I forgot about the box existing. The promo VMAX is like $5, and the promo Vs are like $1. So you can buy the entire 4/4 line, which you will need for Eternatus VMAX, for $25, which is pretty crazy because I think that's one of those few archetypes that will just continuously always be good because of how linear it is, especially paired with Crobat V. Alcremie VMAX is a card that I've been harping on because I think it's going to be very good paired with Shadow Rider, so I kind of included it in here because of its Shining Fates, Hidden Fates expansion specifically. It is only $15 to get a 4/4 line if you're buying like the minimum rarity or like the cheapest rarity. Of course, some of the other rarities have gone up because there's like 3 rarities of the card, but $15 is not bad also for a really strong supporting secondary attacker mon. Dragapult VMAX, one of the few cards that came out with the Rebel Clash expansion, one of the most hyped cards coming out of the Rebel Clash expansion, something that a lot of people really, really liked, is only $15 for a 4/4 line right now. I don't think you'll ever need a 4/4 line again. You could probably buy a 3/3 line of any of these VMAX cards except for Eternatus and be safe, or Shadow Rider, sorry, and be safe. But $15 for this card that was so hyped in the Rebel Clash expansion is crazy to me. I actually was doing this video and I don't own Dragapults, and I literally just bought them while I was filming this video. I said, hey, I just looked up the price of Dragapult and $15 seems like an absolute steal, so I just added a 4/4 line to my card and I bought them. I didn't even think twice about it. That's so cheap to buy a 4/4 line. Following up, we have Rayquaza VMAX, which is going to be the hot new card in Evolving Skies, and it's going to be very, very good. But it's an unknown price point, obviously, but it's probably going to be a lot of money because it's a Rayquaza VMAX, Rayquaza card specifically, as well as it's going to be a new card in the format, and people are going to want to try it. Depending on how many arts there are, it'll be very expensive, I think. Victini VMAX is the last one I want to talk about because Victini has a really good matchup in a lot of these V Pokemon. And for the full 4/4 line, it's $22, and I believe there is a battle deck that comes with the baby Victini Vs that's also really strong for the archetype as a whole. So, in a nutshell, it's not actually that expensive to get back into Pokemon right now because Pokemon is releasing all these really cool products to kind of get the ball rolling, get people getting back into it. The Trainer's Toolkit is a godsend for a lot of players who can't really afford to sit down and collect all these staple trainers, these staple one-ofs all over again. They are very cheap, actually, on TCG Player if you look at it, but having a one-stop shop, like a one-stop place to buy them all, with a couple of packs inside too, because who doesn't love opening booster packs, is a very nice thing to have. Yeah, I hope you guys are all coming back to Pokemon TCG for IRL play for the 21-22 season. The World Championships will be in London in August, so good luck to everybody. I hope you all qualify. I will be there. I am already qualified for at least Thursday, possibly Friday. If you guys enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, you know the deal. Please leave in the comments below if you have any ideas for learning videos, learning newer player kind of topics, because I do want to help newer players get into the game, as well as helping my experienced players learn with deck profiles and tournament reports and that kind of stuff. So until next time, adios. It's been fun. It's been fun. It's Rahul.